I took my brother's girlfriend and called him fragile for being hurt, my family vanished, my new girlfriend cheated, destroyed my reputation, and walked out, while my brother's phone stays silent every time I call. I've called my brother 214 times in the last 11 months. He hasn't answered once. Not a voicemail callback. Not a text. Not a read receipt. Not a single indication that his phone even rings when my name appears. For all I know, he blocked me the day I took everything from him, and the calls have been going into a void this entire time. 214 calls into a void. That's what I earned. My name is Beau. I'm 30. My brother Ellis is 27. And 11 months ago I destroyed his life because I wanted something that was his, and I convinced myself I deserved it more. I took his girlfriend. I mocked him for being hurt. I told my family he was being dramatic. And then the woman I took from him did to me exactly what I did to him. Except she did it worse. And louder. And to an audience. This is a confession. Not a redemption story. Not an apology tour. A confession. Because the man I need to hear it won't answer his phone, and the people who used to love me have stopped trying to explain why they don't anymore. Let me start with who Ellis was. Before me. Before I ruined him. Ellis is 3 years younger. Quiet. The kind of quiet that people mistake for weakness because they've never seen quiet people angry. He was the kid who read at recess. The teenager who played guitar in his room with the door closed. The adult who showed up early to everything and left without making a scene. He didn't compete with me. He didn't try to match me. He existed in his own lane, and he was content there in a way I never understood because I've never been content with anything. I was the loud one. The visible one. The one who walked into rooms and expected them to rearrange. I played football. I was good at it. Not great. Good enough to be the guy people recognized at the grocery store in our small town. Good enough to believe that recognition was the same thing as worth. Ellis had a girlfriend. Noelle. They'd been together for 2 years. She was 25. Graphic designer. Creative. She wore paint-stained jeans and oversized sweaters, and her hair was always slightly messy in a way that looked intentional but wasn't. She was beautiful. Not in the way I usually noticed. In the way that grows on you. The kind of beauty that gets louder the more you look at it. I noticed. I shouldn't have. But I did. And the difference between noticing and acting is a line I erased because I was bored and entitled and had never in my life been told no by anyone who mattered. Ellis brought Noelle to family events. Dinners. Barbecues. Holidays. She fit. She helped my mother in the kitchen without being asked. She asked my father about his woodworking projects and actually listened to the answers. She played cards with my grandmother and let her win without making it obvious. She was good. Genuinely good. The kind of person who fills a room by being in it, not by performing in it. And I wanted her. Not because I loved her. Because Ellis had her. And having something Ellis had felt like winning a contest he didn't know he'd entered. That's the truth. I didn't fall in love with Noelle. I competed for her. The way I competed for everything. Trophies. Attention. Approval. Women. I saw my brother's happiness and I treated it like a resource I was entitled to because I was the older brother. The louder one. The one people noticed first. I started positioning. The same way a predator positions. I don't like that word, but it's accurate, so I'll use it. I found reasons to be near Noelle when Ellis wasn't around. I texted her. Casual things at first. A meme. A restaurant recommendation. A question about a design project she'd mentioned at dinner. Normal stuff. Brother-in-law adjacent stuff. She responded warmly. Because she was warm. Because she was Ellis's girlfriend and she treated his family like her own. She didn't see what I was doing because she wasn't wired to see it. People who aren't manipulative don't recognize manipulation until it's on top of them. Month 2 of the positioning. I escalated. I told her things about Ellis. Small things. Not lies exactly. Distortions. I said, Ellis has always been the sensitive one. He doesn't handle stress well. He's kind but he's fragile. I planted the word fragile like a seed. And I watered it every time she saw me. I said, you're really strong. You probably need someone who matches that energy. Not a criticism of Ellis. Just an observation. She said, Ellis is strong in his own way. I said, sure. But you're a different kind of strong. And she heard it the way I wanted her to hear it. As a compliment wrapped around a comparison. As permission to question what she had. Month 4. I kissed her. At a family gathering. In the kitchen. While Ellis was outside helping my father move a table. In the kitchen of my parents' house. In the room where my mother made Sunday dinners. I kissed his girlfriend. She pulled back. She said, Beau. What are you doing? I said, I'm sorry. I've been feeling something and I couldn't keep it in. She said, I'm with Ellis. I said, I know. I know you are. And I respect that. I'm just being honest about what I feel. Honest. I use the word honest while executing a plan. The way con artists use the word trust while emptying your wallet. She didn't tell Ellis. That's the part I counted on. Good people keep uncomfortable secrets because telling them causes pain, and good people avoid causing pain even when the secret protects the wrong person. She kept it because telling Ellis would hurt him. And she loved him too much to hurt him. I used her goodness as a weapon against her. Month 6. I kissed her again. This time she didn't pull back as fast. She pulled back. But not as fast. And that delay. That half second of hesitation. I treated it like a green light. Because I needed it to be a green light. Because admitting it was confusion instead of desire would have meant the plan was working on her and not on me, and that distinction was important to the version of myself I was performing. Month 7. She came to my apartment. To talk. She said, "Beau. I'm confused. I love Ellis. But you." She couldn't finish. I finished for her. I said, "You don't have to choose right now. Just see what this is." See what this is. The sentence every affair uses as scaffolding. The sentence that delays the honest decision long enough for the dishonest one to feel inevitable. Month 8. She told Ellis. Not the way I expected. She sat him down. She said, "I have feelings for Beau. I'm sorry. I didn't plan this. I need space." She didn't say I kissed her first. She didn't say I'd been positioning for months. She didn't say the word fragile that I'd planted in her vocabulary. She took the blame equally. Because she was good. And good people absorb blame they don't fully deserve because it feels more honest than pointing fingers. Ellis. My brother. The quiet one. The reader. The guitar player. He looked at her and he said, "Okay." One word. The word of a man who has just watched the two people closest to him choose each other. And he got up. And he left the apartment. And he didn't slam the door. He closed it. Gently. The way quiet people close everything. Then he called me. His voice was steady. Not angry. Not broken. Steady in the way that structures are steady right before they fall. He said, "Beau. Is this true?" I said, "Ellis. I didn't plan this. It just happened. I'm sorry. It just happened." The most cowardly sentence in the English language. Said by a man who spent 8 months engineering it. Ellis said, "She said she has feelings for you. Do you have feelings for her?" I said, "Yeah. I do." He was quiet for about 5 seconds. Then he said, "Okay." He hung up. That was the last time Ellis spoke to me. 11 months ago. The last word he ever said to me was okay. The same word he gave Noelle. The same word quiet people use when they've decided that silence is the only dignified response to a wound they can't stitch. I didn't feel guilt. Not then. I felt victory. I felt like I'd proven something. That I was the stronger brother. The one who gets what he wants. The one who takes and wins and moves forward while the sensitive one sits in his room with his guitar and processes. Noelle moved in with me within a month. Fast. Too fast. I know that now. But at the time speed felt like momentum and momentum felt like proof that the decision was right. My family's reaction. My mother called me the night Ellis told her. She said, "Beau. Tell me this isn't true." I said, "Mom. It happened. I'm not going to apologize for how I feel." She said, "You took your brother's girlfriend." She said, "He hasn't left his apartment in 3 days." She said, "Your father can't look at your photo on the mantle." I said, "Ellis is being dramatic. He's fragile. He'll get over it. He always does." She said, "Beau. Don't you ever use that word about your brother again. Fragile. You don't get to break someone and then call them fragile for being broken." I said, "Mom. People move on. He'll find someone else." She said, "You didn't find someone else. You took what was his. There's a difference. And the fact that you can't see it is the reason I'm afraid for you right now." She hung up. My mother. The woman who defended me through every fight. Every suspension. Every mistake since I was 5 years old. She hung up on me. My father didn't call. Not that night. Not the next day. Not for 3 weeks. When he finally called, he said one sentence. He said, "I built 2 bookshelves when you boys were young. One for each of you. Yours is still empty. Ellis filled his. Think about what that means." Then he hung up. I didn't think about what it meant. Because I had Noelle. And having Noelle meant I'd won. And winning was the only metric I'd ever used to evaluate my life. Noelle and I were together. In my apartment. Playing house. She was talented. She worked freelance. She designed logos and brand kits and websites. She was good at it. But she was also volatile in ways I hadn't seen when she was with Ellis. Because with Ellis she was stable. He was the anchor. He created the conditions for her best self to operate. Without Ellis she was different. Restless. Insecure. She questioned everything. She questioned me. She said, "Why did you want me?" She said, "Was it about me or about winning?" I said, "It was about you." She said, "Sometimes I feel like a trophy you took off someone else's shelf." She was right. She was a trophy I took off someone else's shelf. But I couldn't say that. So I said, "That's not fair." And she accepted it because people accept answers that are comfortable even when they know the comfortable answer isn't the true one. Month 3 with Noelle. She started going out more. Happy hours. Industry events. Client dinners. She came home later. Her phone was face down more often. She mentioned names I didn't recognize. A colleague named Remy who was really talented. A client named Jonas who had great energy. Names. New names. The same pattern I should have recognized because it was my own pattern. Reflected back. Through the exact same woman. I didn't recognize it. Because predators don't see predators coming. They only see prey. And I had spent so long seeing myself as the apex that I didn't recognize the shape of what was hunting me. Month 5 with Noelle. I came home on a Wednesday. Her laptop was open on the kitchen counter. A conversation on screen. Instagram DMs. Between her and Remy. The colleague. The messages were not professional. They were explicit. Detailed. Timestamped from the previous Tuesday when she told me she was at a client dinner. I read 4 months of messages in 11 minutes. Every meeting. Every hotel. Every lie. Every time she said, I'm working late. Every time she said, client dinner ran long. The same script she used when she was sneaking around with me while dating Ellis. The same sentences. The same structure. The same woman doing the same thing to the next man in line. I confronted her. I said, who is Remy? She looked at the laptop. She looked at me. And she did something I didn't expect. She didn't cry. She didn't deny. She didn't beg. She said, he's someone who sees me as a person. Not a prize. I said, you've been sleeping with him for 4 months. She said, you've been treating me like a trophy for 5 months. We both knew this wasn't real. You didn't take me because you loved me. You took me because Ellis had me. And once you had me you didn't know what to do with me. Because you never wanted me. You wanted the win. And Beau. Living with someone who only wanted the win is the loneliest thing I've ever experienced. Lonelier than being alone. I said, so you cheated. She said, you stole me from your brother. I walked out on a man who loved me because you made me believe I deserved different. You didn't give me different. You gave me the same thing with a louder voice. Remy is irrelevant. What's relevant is that I left a quiet man who made me feel like the center of his world for a loud man who made me feel like a prop in his. She packed her things that night. She moved out by morning. Fast. Clean. The way she moved in. Speed without roots. Then came the destruction. Noelle didn't leave quietly. She left loudly. She posted about it. Not by name. By description. She wrote a long post on her platform about a man who manipulated her out of a relationship with his own brother. Who positioned and planned and engineered. Who called his brother fragile. Who treated her like a conquest. She didn't say my name. She said, he was the older brother. The loud one. The one everyone noticed first. And he used that visibility like a weapon. People knew. Small town. Everyone knew who she was talking about. My name filled in the blanks her post left empty. Comments. Shares. Mutual friends sending it to each other. Within a week the post had been screenshot and shared in 3 local community groups. Beau Langford. The guy who took his brother's girlfriend and got cheated on by the same woman. The punchline wrote itself. My friends. The guys I'd played football with. The ones who'd clapped me on the back when I showed up with Noelle. The ones who said, nice bro. How'd you manage that? Those guys went quiet. Not all at once. One by one. Texts unanswered. Invitations that stopped coming. A group chat I was slowly muted in until the messages stopped arriving and I realized I'd been removed. Not because they judged me for Noelle leaving. Because the post made them realize what I'd done to Ellis. And men who've been loyal to each other their whole lives don't stay loyal to the man who betrayed his own brother. Because if you'll do that to blood you'll do it to anyone. My reputation in town. Not destroyed. Dissolved. The way salt dissolves in water. You can't see it anymore but the water tastes different. People looked at me differently. The nod at the gas station that used to be warm was now just a nod. The waitress at the diner who used to flirt stopped flirting. The barber who used to talk football started talking weather. Small shifts. The kind that tell you you've been reclassified in people's mental filing system. From Beau the football guy to Beau the guy who did that thing to his brother. My parents. My mother invited me to Thanksgiving. She said, you're still my son. You're still welcome. I went. Ellis wasn't there. His chair was empty. His plate wasn't set. My mother had removed his place setting so there wouldn't be an empty plate. She did that to protect me. From seeing the empty chair. From sitting across from the void I created. I sat at that table and I ate turkey and I looked at the space where Ellis should have been and I felt something I hadn't felt in 30 years of being the loud one. Small. Not humbled. Small. The way a room feels after you remove the most important piece of furniture. The room is the same size but something is missing and the air knows it. My father sat at the head of the table. He looked at the empty space. He didn't say anything about it. He passed the potatoes. He asked about the weather. He ate his food. He didn't look at me directly for the entire meal. After dinner I helped my mother clear the table. She said, Ellis sent me a text this morning. I said, what did it say? She said, he said, Happy Thanksgiving, Mom. I love you. Tell Dad I love him too. She said, he didn't mention you. He hasn't mentioned you since the day you called him fragile. It's like you've been erased from his vocabulary. Erased from his vocabulary. The way I erased him from Noelle's life. The way I erased his feelings from my consideration. He returned the favor. Not with anger. Not with a speech. Not with a post or a phone call or a confrontation. With silence. With the most complete and devastating silence I've ever experienced. 214 calls. 0 answers. That's not rage. Rage picks up the phone and screams. That's something else. That's a man who decided you no longer exist in his world and committed to that decision with the same quiet discipline he applies to everything. I tried other routes. I texted. Read receipts off. I emailed. No response. I drove to his apartment. He'd moved. No forwarding address. His landlord said he left 2 months ago. Clean move. No drama. Just gone. I asked my mother where he was. She said, he asked me not to tell you. I said, Mom. He's my brother. She said, he was your brother. You made a choice. And he made one back. I can't break his trust to ease your guilt. That's not how this works. She said, he's okay. He's working. He's healthy. That's all I can give you. My mother knows where my brother lives and she won't tell me. Not because she's cruel. Because Ellis asked her not to. And she chose to honor his request over my comfort. Because his request was about safety. And my comfort was about guilt management. 6 months after Noelle left. I was alone. Apartment. Same one she moved into. Same one she moved out of. The furniture was mine. The space was mine. The silence was mine. I sat on the couch one night and I thought about Ellis's apartment. When he was with Noelle. I'd been there once. Before everything. It was small. Clean. He had a bookshelf filled to the top. He had a guitar on a stand in the corner. He had a sketch Noelle had drawn of him taped to the fridge. He had a plant on the windowsill that he watered with a measuring cup because he'd read that overwatering kills more plants than underwatering. A man who measures water for a plant. That's who Ellis is. Careful. Deliberate. Precise with things he loves. He didn't throw love around like confetti the way I did. He measured it. He poured it carefully. And the woman he poured it on left because I convinced her that careful love was less than loud love. It wasn't less. It was more. Measured water keeps things alive. Flooding kills them. I flooded Noelle. I flooded the relationship. I flooded my family. I flooded everything because flooding is all I know. Volume. Speed. Force. The loud one. The visible one. The one who enters rooms and expects them to rearrange. Nobody rearranges for me anymore. The room stays as it is. And I walk in and nothing changes. And for the first time in my life I understand what Ellis felt every time I walked in and took up all the space. He didn't feel small because he was small. He felt small because I made the room smaller. By being too much. Always too much. Remy. The man Noelle left me for. They're still together. I see it online. He's a designer too. They work together now. They post about projects. They look happy. Not performed happy. Actual happy. The way Ellis and Noelle used to look before I intervened. I don't blame Remy. I can't. He did to me what I did to Ellis. The only difference is he didn't engineer it over 8 months. He just showed up and was present, and that was enough because the bar I'd set was so low that basic human attention felt like rescue to a woman I'd been neglecting since the victory wore off. I went to a therapist. 3 months ago. First session she asked me what brought me in. I said, I took my brother's girlfriend. He stopped talking to me. She cheated on me. And my family looks at me like I'm something they're trying to forgive but can't. She said, why did you take your brother's girlfriend? I said, because I wanted her. She said, did you love her? I said, I thought I did. She said, what do you think now? I said, I think I loved winning. And she was the prize. And the person I was competing against was my brother. Who wasn't even competing. Who was just living his life and loving someone, and I turned it into a contest he didn't know about and I won, and the trophy walked out 5 months later with another man. She said, what did winning cost you? I said, my brother. My family's respect. My reputation. The only woman who ever made me feel like I was enough. Which is ironic. Because Noelle was never going to make me feel like I was enough. She was a mirror. And mirrors don't fill voids. They just show you the void more clearly. She said, have you apologized to your brother? I said, 214 times. He doesn't answer. She said, an apology someone can't hear isn't an apology. It's a request. You're not apologizing. You're asking to be forgiven. Those are different things. An apology requires nothing from the other person. Forgiveness requires everything. You're calling 214 times because you want relief. Not because you want to give it. I want relief. She's right. Every call I make is a selfish act disguised as remorse. I'm not calling because Ellis needs to hear from me. I'm calling because the silence is unbearable and I need him to break it so I can breathe. He doesn't owe me breath. The bookshelf. My father said it 11 months ago. I built 2 bookshelves when you boys were young. Yours is still empty. Ellis filled his. I didn't understand it then. I understand it now. Ellis built a life that had substance. Books. Music. Art. A careful love poured from a measuring cup. A plant on a windowsill. A sketch on a fridge. Quiet things. Meaningful things. Things that accumulate over time and become a person worth knowing. I built a trophy case. Loud. Visible. Impressive from across the room. But empty. Every trophy I collected was taken from someone else's shelf. The football stats. The attention. The women. Noelle. I never built anything. I only took. And when you take without building, the shelf eventually collapses because there's nothing underneath holding it up. My shelf collapsed. Noelle was the last trophy. And she walked off the shelf by herself. I drive past Ellis's old apartment sometimes. Someone else lives there now. Different curtains. Different car in the lot. He's gone. Somewhere I don't know. Doing things I can't see. Living a life I'm not part of. My mother told me last week that Ellis is doing well. She said, he's working at a design firm. She said, he seems settled. She didn't say more. She doesn't say more. Because more is Ellis's story to tell. And he's not telling it to me. She said, Beau. I need to tell you something and it's going to hurt. She said, Ellis told me he's at peace. He said the silence isn't anger. It's not punishment. It's just the boundary he needed to heal. He said he doesn't hate you. He said hating you would require energy he'd rather spend on things that grow. And he's growing. Without you. And he's okay with that. Hating you would require energy he'd rather spend on things that grow. My brother said that. About me. The man who called him fragile. The man who spent 8 months stealing his girlfriend. The man who told their mother he was being dramatic. He's not dramatic. He's not fragile. He's not weak. He's the strongest person I've ever known. Because strength isn't volume. Strength isn't taking. Strength is a man who loses his girlfriend and his brother on the same day and responds by closing the door gently and growing in silence and never once lowering himself to the level of the person who hurt him. That's strength. I've never had it. I performed it. With volume and visibility and a football jersey. But I never had it. 215. I called again this morning. Before writing this. Habit. Desperation. The phone rang 4 times. Then voicemail. His voice. Recorded months ago probably. He said, hey. You've reached Ellis. Leave a message. I didn't leave a message. I haven't left one in weeks. Because the therapist was right. The calls aren't apologies. They're requests. And Ellis doesn't owe me a response. But I'll call again tomorrow. 216. Not because I expect him to answer. Because the ringing is the only connection I have left. 4 rings. His voice. A beep. Silence. That's what I reduced my brother to. 4 rings and a voicemail recording. I called him fragile. He called me nothing. Because he doesn't call me at all. And his silence is the loudest thing I've ever heard.